DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command your legion, claim your legacy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's DeFi Kingdoms AMA. Welcome to everybody who's here to listen live, and hello as well to all those that will listen to this recording later. As always, we appreciate you being here, and we are excited to get started. So, to kick things off, we are going to talk about Duels a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Frisky Fox to kick that off.
Jumping right into the fire, out of the frying pan. Great. Yeah, no, thanks everyone. So Duels, we're in the second week. It's been a week now since launch. There was a lot of really good feedback last week that was given. A lot of discussions in the Duels channel and internally as our team. I actually made an announcement last night about some of the changes that we plan to make to Duels. There was a lot of good questions asked in the AMA channel after that announcement as well, that I'm going to try to address. So, basically there was a question about, why are we making changes after launch? I guess, first of all, this isn't necessarily super out of the ordinary. We've made changes after launch probably for almost half the seasons, maybe more, I don't know, to like matchmaking or to some of the combat mechanics and the calculations. Basically, we launched Duels. Well, I guess we spend time first and we create a bunch of features and we do our best to try to test them as well as we can. And after it launches, we sort of look at it and see, what's happening. Are there things we need to adjust or tweak? What's the feedback, etc.? And then usually in like the first week or so, we'll make some changes. That said, we want to get away from doing that. We want to have Duels be less of a let's do a bunch of different things in between seasons and more of a consistent and regular thing. And that's actually part of why this particular season took so long to build. We wanted, over the months and actually, I guess, not years maybe, but over a year, right?
Years at this point. It's got to be.
So, I mean, it definitely feels like lifetimes, right? But we've added so many features to Duels over time. We've added, even just like rank rewards. We've added private matches. We've added practice matches. We've added other kinds of like lobbies and things. We've added like class boosts themselves, or things we've added in other seasons. We've added equipment support, stuff like for pet boosts and things like that. There's all kinds of things we've added, and it's at the point now where it's about feature complete. Duels was meant to be a mini game. It is a mini game, and we've added a lot of really fun things to it. It's been a lot of fun to build. It's been a lot of work to build, and we've got really cool things now that are about ready to launch too. I mean, like we've had Hunt's launch with our actual like real combat, with all the hero abilities and things there, and that's a lot of fun. And Duels is kind of being like relegated to sort of like the mini game sphere that it was always intended to be in. So to get to the point where we can kind of sign off on that feature and be like, this is where we want it, there was a bunch of things that I wanted to add in before we kind of like close that door on like adding a bunch of new features in between seasons. Like, let's get in all the last things that I wanted to get in. And that's part of why this last season took so long. Things like deathmatch and stuff like that. And then like the stuff that we added in, like the 5v5 with the pack mode. There's a lot of things there, a lot of work. Aside from that, just the whole refactoring of everything to make it so that Duels going forward will just be a single address. It won't have a whole new contract being built out in between seasons each time. So now it's going to sort of be a perpetual thing that will be able to continue to sort of run on a schedule and actually have the ability to schedule ahead of time. And then have it sort of run so that maybe in between seasons, we execute a script that will set up the next season that's already been kind of planned for and configured and all that. And that would take maybe just an hour or less in between seasons. That's where we want it to be. That's the good spot for it, so that we can really start to focus on a lot of these other exciting features that we're building as well. So to get there, a ton of refactoring had to be done. The ability for one contract to support multiple seasons of Duels was a fair amount of work. So then, yeah, let's see. I'm kind of rambling. I have some notes. Let's see. So yeah, we did want to focus on basically making it be as streamlined as possible. What were the changes that we made? We were sort of going back and forth on 1v1. It's a very popular mode, but there wasn't a lot of data around like what kind of behaviors was it driving, what are the kinds of players that are playing it, and are they also playing other duel types too, or are they just sticking to the one? So we kind of just said, you know what, like we're adding a 5v5 mode with a lot of other cool news, kind of like maybe the least interesting of all the modes in terms of like strategy and like creating a team and all that kind of stuff, because there is no team. But after we launched, it actually had a lot of feedback saying, hey, we actually liked having the 1v1 mode. You know, there was a lot of fun just being able to like basically trying to create the best hero and have it fight. And a lot of players even said, I only have one hero, you know, like that was my thing. And so now I'm kind of like scoped out of this like mini game. And so there's a lot of really good feedback received. There's a lot of people that were in the Duels channel saying stuff. There's also a lot of people that messaged me just like directly and like had some like really good feedback there too. So we decided, you know what, let's do some more analytics around this. So I spent some time and I went and pulled a lot of data, analyzed the users and the behaviors and all that type of stuff. And we found out, you know what, it looks like it's still actually pretty healthy and pretty popular. Let's bring it back. Let's see how it does. Let's monitor it this season again. And obviously we'll continue to monitor things. And as things do need to be adjusted, there will be adjustments. But the goal is to make it so that it's in a good spot so we don't have to do as much of those adjustments. So with the 1v1, we're going to try it. We're going to bring it back and see how it does. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be a good change. The other thing that we did was with the class rotations, and this one was a little bit more controversial. You know, there was a lot of like feedback received for both ways of this, and a lot of people that were very outspoken, which is good. You know, like you need, when you build something, like the only way to avoid criticism in life, and this is actually one of my favorite quotes, is do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. That's the only way to avoid criticism. Otherwise, there's always going to be someone who has their ideas for how it should have been done differently, and that's fine. You need both compliments and criticism for a good project to succeed. You know, a flower grows with the sun and the rain, right? You need both. And so part of building something is also listening to that feedback. And that's really what this is all about. So we invite feedback, we listen to it, we talk about it. You know, we even actively like try to like brainstorm with all of the people that are providing that feedback. Last week after the AMA, I actually went and hopped in the Duels channel and had a pretty good discussion with a number of different players about ideas and what can be done, what should be done, what should have been done differently, what they didn't like. And they made some really good points at times, other times not so much. And there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of like, well, here's why we did this. Here's why the classes were changed. Here's why the boosts were changed. And it went back to behaviors. What behaviors do we want to incentivize with this? Well, I had mentioned a lot of times in other AMAs and elsewhere, because I've been asked a lot, like, what about the class boosts? Those are a very interesting part of Duel. It's what leads to players building teams and creating teams that work well together is the class boosts, because it's really the thing that allows them to optimize their teams. So what behaviors do we want to incentivize? I like that. I like that players can plan and build teams and try to create the best strategy. And I had talked about randomizing those a number of times, but it hadn't been done over the past like 3 seasons or so since we had the class boost. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me. But basically it hadn't been changed yet, but it had been on my list personally to do. And so with this new contract being the last dual contract, it's really the time to do all those things. And so that was one of those things that was high on my list, like figure out a way to make the class boosts interesting. Like that, in my mind, is what leads to seasons having any amount of relevance at all. Because if each new season just has the same old class boosts, then what's really different between the seasons? There's not really any difference between them, and it just gets to where it's the same old, same old. Conversely, if you have a new class boost meta in between each season, that leads to a lot of fun. It's like, hey, like I can't use the same strategy that I used last season. I got to come up with a new strategy. I got to build a new team. And I really like that. So I'm a huge fan of that. And that's why it was done. But also the behavior that we want to incentivize, do we want that to just be sort of like surprise each time, like figure it out and then go with it? That's one option. And it realistically could work. But personally, from what I've seen and observed, most players really enjoy planning and preparing and strategizing for these things. Like they want to level up their heroes that would be good for that new meta. They want to focus on those. They want to start to gather those heroes together and build those teams. And to do that effectively, you need time to prepare. So with that in mind, I want to make sure that future seasons have a fair amount of heads up about what the next meta will be. At least 2 weeks. I'd like to push for more. I'd like to even be able to announce those upcoming seasons and metas even towards the end of the previous season or something like that. And I'm still trying to figure out the best time for that, but I'm going to be working on that. But with that in mind, the reason why we want to give that time is because we want to give players the opportunity to prepare and to begin to plan and strategize and get excited about the next season. And that didn't happen with this season. It was one of those things that was just kind of like, surprise, here's some new classes that are being boosted. Here's the new order. And even that was something that wasn't really announced at the start of the season. Even it was something that players had to figure out as they went. And I can see why some people would be upset about that. It didn't give anyone any time to strategize and prepare. Now, the other argument is, hey, everyone's on the same page. Everyone's on the same footing. Nobody got an advantage with early access to information or anything like that. So yeah, you can be upset about it, but it's at least fair. And that's fair. I agree with that. I don't think there was any unfairness with how that was done. But is it incentivizing the right behavior that I wanted to incentivize? It wasn't. And part of that was just because what I would like to do with the communication for all of the ongoing seasons and be able to announce those metas ahead of time, I didn't do with this season. And I feel like because that wasn't done, it's only fair in my mind, or at least in the best interest, to have a bridge period and be like, hey, like for this season, since there wasn't that early heads up about what this new meta is, we're going to do both. We're going to have the class boosts from this one, but also still support the class boosts from the old one too, because a lot of people prepared for that and they built teams around that. So it's a compromise and it's not perfect. And there's going to be people that are still going to be upset about it one way or the other, but it feels like the right thing to do. And so we had a lot of internal discussions about that with our committees and a lot of back and forth. There were strong opinions on both sides. In the end, we decided that, yeah, this bridge period does make sense because it's what we want to do for the seasons going forward as well, is have that time where players can prepare. So having this as a bridge period makes sense. Bringing back the 1v1 and observing how it does makes sense. And that's what we're going to do. So there's a little bit of context and background. There's the reasonings why. As I said, there's always going to be feedback. We're always going to listen to that feedback. It's really important. That's what makes this game great, is that we have really excited players that play and give good feedback. And it's not always going to be compliments. It's going to be things, hey, you should have done this differently or that differently. And we look at those and we say, you know what? No, we did that for this and this reason, and we'll explain it. Or other times we're like, you know what? Yeah, you have a good point. We will make those changes. And that's just kind of how it goes. It's a collaborative process. Obviously, we have a very strong plan and strong internal vision on how we want the game to go, and we will stick with that. But soliciting the feedback and listening to the feedback along the way is very important as well. So that's a lot of rambling. I don't know if I hit all my notes, but I'll be available as always in Discord or elsewhere. So if you guys want to reach out to me, let me know what you think about it. I'm always interested in hearing. A lot of times it's those that are have the strongest opinions about things that are going to make those heard and known. That's fine. But I'd also encourage you, if you actually like how things are, or if you agree with what's being done, hop in there too and just say, hey, I like it for this and this reason, because those are also really good to hear. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
I guess one thing just to highlight, and Fox, feel free if you have any add-ons to this or additions, corrections, whatever. But one of our goals is to get away from the need to do a lot of work between Duels seasons. As Fox said, Duels is a mini game, and now we have a lot of other priorities. So that doesn't mean that we can't make changes or won't make changes. There will probably be changes as things evolve. But our goal is, in the past, we've had a few weeks between seasons where most of Fox's time was working on the new Duels season, and that's what we're trying to get away from, and that's why we're looking at making these changes now, because if we don't make them now, even though we may agree with the feedback, we say, well, we're going to wait until the next off season. Then what we're saying is, hey, in 7 weeks, we're going to distract Fox again. We're working on Duel stuff. And that's part of what we're trying to move away from by making this perpetual season, by having, or perpetual contract, sorry, not season. Nobody lock onto that. Perpetual contract, and having the ability to, fire up these new seasons with minimal effort compared to what we've done in the past.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's what it's all about. We have so many things to build here, like for DFK. Like we've got a long roadmap. I think we've said before something along the lines like we've built out, 20% of like what we want to build. There's a lot to build. We can't spend all our time on Duels, but we've added so many things to Duels. It's been so fun to build. It's a really awesome and like really sort of like rich thing that we've built, and it's in a good state. And we want that to have new seasons that will have fresh metas each time, and we want to make sure that that's communicated well. And I feel really good about it. So I'm excited to see how this season does, and we'll obviously be observing it and monitoring it, and also continuing to listen to feedback. So if you have things that you think should be done or changed or whatever, make sure to still share those. And we might not always say yes. In fact, probably a lot of times we won't, because again, we're going to be trying to focus on other things. But I do read all those things and I hear all them. I think Zipper and Bolon and others make sure that I see all the important ones, which there is a lot of good stuff in there. So thank you for sharing those. Please continue to do so. And I'm excited to see how this season does. And I'm excited about our next season, because I'm going to basically run a script that's going to take me an hour to run. And that will set up the next season. And it's going to be 2 weeks like clockwork. And so that's what I'm super excited about. But maybe I'll have some time to actually play a lot more this season in the Duels and see if I can actually snag that spot there for the bronze champion or something, because that's all I could ever possibly do, probably. But yeah, thanks everyone for your feedback, and I'll be there if you have anything you want to share.
Thank you, Fox. One other unrelated update, and then we're going to dive into some questions. But for those of you that may have seen it, there was an announcement that Stripe was officially integrating Avalanche. Holy crap, the screen changed. Thanks, KP. Stripe had integrated Avalanche, which was very exciting. Stripe, for those that don't know, is a payment provider. So it's another option for on-ramps. And our phenomenal partners over at Halliday have already integrated Stripe. So we believe that we are actually the first DApp on Avalanche with Stripe integrated into an on-ramp, which is very exciting. Shout out to Halliday for always killing it and doing great work. So if you are a US-based user and you go to use the Halliday on-ramp, you will now have the option between Stripe and MoonPay. Both are available, but one of the really cool things with Stripe is it actually supports a minimum of $2. So you can go through the on-ramp process with as little as $2 through the Stripe flow, One note, if you have used it before and you did KYC with MoonPay, that does not carry over to Stripe, so you will need to KYC again with Stripe. But yes, for our US based users, you can now use the Holiday on-ramp with Stripe. It's very exciting. It's really cool to have, that low of a minimum. It really opens that door up for more people to be able to use the convenience of on-ramps. And as always, just huge kudos to Holiday for being awesome and working so fast. So really happy to see that and happy to share that news with everybody. There will be a tweet about it a little bit later as well. But it is live now, so you can go do it as you listen to us if you want to. And moving on to that, or from that, we are going to get into some questions. We're going to see if we can't finish Matty Pesk's list today. But before that, Sticks Intern snuck one in between Matty posting his. So this one is possibly actually for Beetle Dude, but maybe Hubert as well. We're going to find out. How does the turn prediction tool account for crowd control effects like days? For example, when casting Forever Vigilant, the turn prediction appears to assume that the daze is applied. But when it comes to skills like Rapid Shot, that have a chance to daze any and all targets, it looks like it may be assuming that the daze will apply to the front enemy only.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a good question. So the way the attack prediction works is that it's essentially simulating what could happen with the attack. So it will essentially, for the first Forever Vigilant example, it would get, verify that daze is an option that could happen, that there's a chance that it would happen. So it registers that. With Rapid Shot, it's a little bit more free form, I guess, because it could hit any target and could daze any target. So I think probably for that specific one, I'd probably need to review, because it might be a bug. So if it is, I'll take a look and see how we can get that resolved.
And I think specifically with the time bar, I believe it assumes that the effect happens in order to show you what will happen if the effect happens. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So if there's any time-based adjustments that could happen that vary from the kind of initial 1,000 initiative ability, then it will display those.
Awesome. Thank you, Sir Beetle Dude.
Thank you.
And good news, it wasn't even something for your list, so we'll find something to add to it later. Don't worry. Let's see. Question on barrier. If there is no distinction in the codex, is it safe to assume that it is a pure barrier, protecting both physical and magical damage, or do barriers have that distinction at all?
So is this a Maddie question?
It is.
All right. Before I answer this, I need to come to the defense of my boy Workhorse, because if anybody caught the last Bogside chat, he was shamed, and I will just say that I had myself actually told him that he didn't need to be there for this last AMA, because I thought I could handle things. So shame on you, Maddie, for shaming and assuming that he was cowering out. I told him that he could. So.
Would you like me to play an apology from Maddie? I have one for you.
That's okay. I if you want to, but we don't need to go that far. But
all right.
But yeah. And also I wasn't confused. I think my dad brain is without confusion, but definitely with the tired still, for sure. But anyway, so with all of that said, let me go ahead and get to these questions here. So we did actually make a decision on barrier to just reduce confusion by having it be that there's only one type of barrier now. So all barriers are what was previously referred to as pure barriers. In our design processes, we really hadn't come to any place where we felt like a magical barrier or physical barrier would make more sense than a pure barrier. So we just weren't really even using them. And once it got to the point, if we actually did use them, it was just gonna just like the UI for that and explaining that, and it just seemed better all around to just stick with pure barriers exclusively. So at this point, we've, I think, updated all of the text anywhere that might have said pure barrier to just say barrier. If there's anywhere where we haven't updated that yet, we'll just need to notice that and get that taken care of. But that's the plan moving forward. However, with that said, ward, we have not made that decision with wards. So we do have the distinction of like magical wards and physical wards and potentially pure wards as well. So with the seer, it can create a magical ward that's meant to kind of like that osmotic, I think it's osmotic ward is what its name is. That one is intended to specifically absorb magical spells and convert them into something else. So that side of things is going to be more along that flavor, at least for right now. So that's
Awesome.
that.
Thank you, sir. Real quick before the next question, I will also note everybody's feedback is extremely useful. I mean, in all things, we talked about it with duels. Void hunts is the same. Also type. We have a lot of words in our game. And so, if anything doesn't look right or doesn't make sense, please let us know. But moving into the next question, channel versus delay. So with the addition of Seer, we are seeing more delay, but it also has channel moves. Can we talk about the design choice of using a channel versus a delay?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, they do work differently, right? Like a channel can be interrupted directly. It kind of gives the player, the opponent, a chance to react to something that's coming. Whereas with delay, it's a little bit less capable to react to it. Like even if the caster of the delay ability dies, it will still happen. So it's a different flavor of kind of the similar effect, but we do also have ways where you can negate a delay effect as well. So we just liked the interplay of having kind of, we're always trying to have like an action and reaction type of design to like the different mechanics that we had in the game, and felt that delay kind of gave us a different flavor of a similar thing. And just give it, having just more options for things that people can do and things that people need to react to felt pretty nice. So I think that's, I don't know that there's much more like thought process behind why we included both beyond that. Just other than we liked the idea, so we did it. So I don't have, now it'd be like a good time if Workhorse wanted to chime in, but he's not here right now. So
Damn it, Workhorse. No, that is my favorite reasoning though. We liked it, so we did it.
Yeah.
Let's see. So the next one is a very cleverly phrased win question, and I have to give Maddie credit for how well phrased this was. But I'm curious, Hubert, what your thoughts on it are. Based on the updated roadmap, it appears a version of PvP in the Coliseum on Metis will be out prior to durability for equipment going live. Do we have any plans for balancing equipment for that early version of PvP, like banning certain weapons or doing Coliseum-specific weapons, that kind of thing?
So yeah, I think that roadmap image that was put out, I believe it came with a disclaimer that it didn't necessarily mean that everything was going to release in the order portrayed. So
it for sure did come with that disclaimer.
I wouldn't commit to saying that durability will not be out at the same time as PvP. But it's all just going to depend on how much that we can get done. Ultimately, I do want durability to be coming out sooner rather than later, because it's kind of been a long time coming, and I'm actively working on pieces of that right now, just to get us to a point where we can have more equipment out. We can have equipment being starting to decay. So like the best if you want to use the best equipment, you just need to realize there's a cost that's associated with that in terms of its durability. Because otherwise, yeah, it does kind of create a problem where, if you have the best equipment, you're going to have the best chances against somebody who, even with the same heroes, if they don't have the same equipment, they're just at a disadvantage. So I think there needs to be, a counterbalance to that, and the durability system is that thing in my mind. So I'm hopeful that we can get that kind of included as at the same time, or if not very soon after. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think we'll be doing any banning of equipment, though. That's probably too much extra work for something that's temporary.
Awesome. Dispel. The Seer is the first class to utilize Dispel, which targets opponents' buffs. Hypothetically, in a PvP setting, can a Dispel remove a buff given by a potion, specifically that Fat Swiftness potion?
So at the moment, no. We've had potions be something that like their effects are not dispellable or cleansable. Not that there's any need to cleanse any of those, but just in general, because those kind of come from a like outside resources. Wanted it to be sure that like the effect was felt for that fight. I mean, you could still do things in reaction to that, right? Like you can try to slow the hero, you can daze them, or do. I guess those are kind of your options there, or do other things just to kind of like taunt them, redirect them as much as possible until that effect is worn off. And then if they do use a swiftness potion, that means most of their battle budget is gone at that point. So if you can endure through, then you might have a potion advantage at that point. So I think the goal is also to have that kind of interesting counterplay between battle budgets and potion usage as well. And I'll just also note that we're not done having like the consumables that exist right now aren't necessarily going to be all the consumables that will ever exist. So I think there could be some additional things in the future that may be like a good response to that per se. But yeah, anyway.
Speaking of Seer, more opinion-based question. Did we intend for the Seer to be more linear than other classes in its skill selection because of tools like Artificer and Oracle, which both synergize very well down their respective talent paths? Seer can play many different roles, but is there still room for mixing up the talent trees? Where's Sashay?
Yeah, where's Sashay? I mean, I think there is still room. I mean, I don't really see a problem with there being high synergy between like some passives and some abilities. I mean, there's kind of a balance between, I guess, having kind of a class fantasy and also having enough different kinds of strategy that you can do. There's strategy within a hero itself, but then strategy in like the team that you build around each hero's set of skills. So, I don't necessarily think there's a problem with how we set up Seer, nor like I know there's future classes as well that have kind of similar synergies as well. Kind of thinking about in particular right now, the wizard has a good chunk of that with its like combos off of chill and burn, and also arcane power too. They all kind of have a lot of synergies along their tiers, but I think also there's room to mix and match and come up with good combos as well. So yeah, I'm not sure that there's an issue with that personally, but it would be open to see any analysis to say otherwise.
Awesome. I feel like you're just saying Maddie needs to get more creative, but I appreciate it. Just kidding. I'll stop roasting you, Maddie. I'm sorry.
We love you, Maddie.
Subclass passives. If active subclass, excuse me. If active subclass moves require the hero to have the proper equipment equipped to execute, but passives do not, are passive subclass moves inherently more powerful, and do we expect them to be more often selected than their active counterparts?
I mean, I think there is a strong argument to say that passives are generally more powerful, especially since most of them don't require any mana cost to have them either. So they just enhance your hero and do their thing, and that's that. So I mean, we do try to balance them in making sure they're not too powerful on their own. But I do see, like, if you have uh, particularly like mismatched subclasses with the main class, if they don't really synergize well, probably picking the passives would be your best bet for a lot of cases if you want to like take anything from the subclass, just because they're like they require the least amount of like manipulation of your hero and having specific equipment, things like that. So I mean, and I don't think that's a bad thing either. Just, it gives people options even in cases where they might have a combination that they don't think is particularly good. Um, so, but yeah, like I said, we try to keep them at least kind of toned down in terms of their effectiveness, and have the things that are very powerful be active skills that require MP. And so that's kind of a balance that we're going for.
It really helps if I unmute before I start talking. Wards and status effects. Does a ward stop a status effect from applying? And like with the Oracle Seer move, if the initial attack does 0 damage and applies a status effect, would a ward stop it from occurring?
So wards do, if a ward activates and prevents an attack from happening, then yes, they do prevent the status effects as well. That being said, they're damage type specific, so you can also completely bypass a ward by doing the other damage type, and if that has a status effect, that would get through. And then on that specific example of the 0 damage, I'd have to double check, or maybe Beetle, I think the specific wording on ward is that it requires some damage to be dealt, and 0 damage is not some damage, for it to like activate. So it might be kind of like a pull out some Dune Dune terminology here. Their shields, I think, are very cool. It's like you go in real slow, and then the shield doesn't activate, and then you get them. So it might be like that, but I need to double check. I feel like I should.
I believe that's the case.
So because it does 0 damage, it would not activate the ward, which would allow the status effect to apply. Is that right?
Right. That's what I believe is correct. Yes. I'd have to double check also.
Yeah, I think with the way it wears, it reduces damage to 0 for incoming damage. The attacks that say do 0 damage is the intent there is more to say that it still has to go through all of the defensive checks, so that like it's an attack, it needs to hit, it can't be evaded. If it's blocked, the block will reduce the chance of the status effect applying. So all of like that, the intent of having things that say that is just to ensure that it's clear that there's still all of the defensive mechanics are in play, and it's not something that just happens and there's no like interaction there.
Awesome. Congratulations, you've completed the gauntlet of Maddie questions. That said, there's a very important question from chat. Win Chris Knife. I agree. But don't worry, Hubert, I still have more questions for you, but you've completed the Maddie ones. However, before that, I'm actually going to kick over to Fox for a second. We talked a little bit last week about voting, and I think that our message may have come across the wrong way. So it sounds like fixing voting, the Halliday issue with voting, is not a priority currently. Do we have an idea of how many users there are using Halliday and how much Jewel is staked on those wallets? I'll just say before I turn it over to you, it's actually not so much about the Jewel that's staked, because we have a way already in game for them to allocate that voting power to a MetaMask wallet. But we also have hero voting power, which if their heroes are in their Halliday wallet, we do not have a way currently to allocate that voting power. So voting in general, Fox, I guess, to you.
Cool. Yeah, that wasn't the intent last week to make it sound like it's not a priority. It is. It's high on my list. In fact, I was up until 2 a.m. last night working on it. And yeah, there's a lot of things, a lot of challenges right now around trying to get that to work. And there's been a lot of blockers too. There's been stuff that had to be built on Halliday's side to support that, and they've been really good about that. They're always really, really great partners to us. But like they had to build up some whole new features for supporting EIP 1271, which is a way for basically smart wallet accounts to be able to sign a like message. And that's how it works with snapshot.org is you have a message or like a vote that you'd like to cast, and you have to sign that to make sure that it's your vote, basically. Snapshot.org has a lot of things there too, and it's not super well documented. I've had to look at a bunch of different forums and Discord channels and all over the place to try to figure out kind of how to do it. And we're getting closer all the time. Made a lot of progress last night actually with Halliday. One of their devs was able to work through some of it with me, and it was really good. But there's still some hiccups there in terms of how Snapshot wants it to look like and how Halliday wants it to work for security reasons. And there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So I'm still working on that. But I was actually working on that just now, actually, ironically, when I was asked this question, because I thought I was done for the AMA thing. But let's see. Priority, definitely. Do we have an idea of how many users this impacts? We have rough ideas, and it's not necessarily about like what percentage or any of that. It's about like we want to include everyone in these votes. Like having a way to like play our game and have your account be set up that is a way that we would like to recommend to players, which it is, and yet not having that be included in some of the most important things of a decentralized protocol like the voting is something that we feel strongly about, like that we want to include those individuals in all of our votes because that's a big part of it. So there is that. We did build the feature for Halliday wallets to be able to delegate their C-Jewel voting power to a MetaMask or other account that can participate in Snapshot out of the box. So that was added. The only real thing that's outstanding right now is the hero power voting. And there's other ideas that we've considered for this besides just trying to figure out how to get snapshot.org to support smart contract account signing of the votes. Some of those ideas are being able to like delegate heroes, like saying, I want to delegate my hero voting power to another address too. And I've started on a few proof of concepts there to see if we get that to work. And it has a way that would work. It's going to be a fair amount of build to get it to work. It wasn't as easy as I first thought it might be. It wasn't as easy as the C-Jewel one because C-Jewel actually had a lot of really cool things built into it already to support that delegation and how they track your balances over time. Every time that you do a withdraw or a deposit or anything like that, it takes little snapshots along the way, which makes that a lot easier to do. But with heroes, there's no real snapshot system built into that yet. So we'd have to build some kind of a system that would allow users to basically register their heroes to vote. And once they do that, they'd be able to also delegate those heroes for like the voting power to other people as well. That entails a lot of things. We have to build a lot of things in the contract. We'd have to build out a lot of interface things as well for players to be able to see their heroes that have registered, be able to register them, be able to delegate them and to view their existing power and who's already delegated to them and a bunch of things there. So before we go down that route too far, we want to give it sort of the old college try and be like, let's see if we can get Halliday voting to just work on Snapshot. We're close, and there's just a few more disconnects there. So we want to make sure that that we give that a try because that would be the ideal way, and also because I spent a lot of time a couple months ago trying to get the the snapshot votes brought into the interface for our game. So basically, and I have this up and currently working on my local, is you can go to the castle, speak with the envoy at the castle, and see all of the votes that are existing and all the ones that are passed as well, and be able to actually vote from them from within our game. And it's really slick and smooth how it works. And right now it works really well with MetaMask. And Halliday, it's the only way that we would get Halliday to work too, because snapshot.org's interface doesn't support it. So we'd have to do it through ours. But it's close, and it's like there's one little blocker still, that wall we got to break through. So I need to speak with the snapshot team and figure out what they can do and coordinate that with the Halliday team as well. So definitely still at the top of my priority list. And I'm excited to have more time to spend on it now that Duels is mostly there. So yeah, that's where it's at. That's why it's a priority. And that's the approach that we're taking right now. And if for some reason that wall is just insurmountable, then we're going to do a little pivot and figure out another way to be able to delegate heroes. So one way or another, we're going to get there. Hopefully it's this way. If not, we have a fallback.
Awesome. Thank you, Fox. Real quick note before we go to our next question. I was just informed through Discord that we have now had over 250,000 hunts, which is absolutely incredible. So shout out to everybody who's hunting. That's a lot of hunts.
Woo!
Woot.
All right. Going back to questions, Hubert, I got one coming at you. The concept for an event with different cosmetic backgrounds was brought up, but the counterpoint mentioned by Hubert at the time was that there are only so many gene slots available. Why do promotional cosmetics need their own genetics?
I mean, if it didn't work with the gene system, we'd have to build kind of a whole new unique thing that would have to be tracked everywhere, have to be bridgeable, have to be, it'd just be like a whole new attachment to everything. And what we have already with heroes is pretty large. So, I mean, I suppose it's possible for us to build more on there, but I don't know that I'd want us to put a lot of effort into doing that just for kind of like additional cosmetics, probably. So, I mean, the gene system as it is right now, like there is room for us in some cases to add additional appearance genes, background genes, and whatnot. But there's kind of a limit to that, and especially where I think with backgrounds in particular, it does kind of. If we were to add any new backgrounds, we'd also need to adjust duels every time we did that, because it would. If it was within the gene system anyway. If it was this separate system that I mentioned as like a hypothetical possibility, then that might not interact with duels per se, but it would be a whole separate thing that we'd have to build out. And I just don't see that as being more important than all the other things we're working on right now.
Because essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the hero's appearance is pulled from the genetics. So whatever's in the background genetic slot is what's showing as the hero's background.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, especially like if we're talking about doing an override of the background, it would have to be like some separate thing if we were doing like based on what this idea is asking anyway. It'd have to be a whole separate thing, and like I said, it would need to be bridgeable because it would have to follow the heroes. Otherwise, I suppose the other option is we do kind of Web 2 technology type things where we just change things based on things off chain, but that's not really the like way that we like to do things here. So I don't really see us going that direction either.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Moving into some other questions. We're going to go deep down the hypothetical train for a minute here with you, Hubert. Gold vein. Do we think that, so gold vein is currently a gold crop, wondering if gold vein will be used in the goldsmithing crafting profession as possible mats?
It's possible, though we haven't really done too much with the gold crops other than, kind of in treating them as such. it's always possible that we add more utility to those things. And that I would not say that they will never be used anywhere else. So possible, maybe not likely, but possible.
Thank you, sir. Guild mechanics are far off, but have we given any thought to a multi-guild system allowing people to belong to multiple guilds or only a single guild? I was told to read this. Dags is wondering because he is a filthy cheater who wants to spread his love to many. Dags told me to read it. Okay, I don't know.
Dags is a guild polygamist. Yeah, we really haven't worked out the details of how we want guilds to work yet, so it's kind of speculation at this point. I wonder if we would build in reasons where we wouldn't want there to be more than one guild connection. I guess it kind of depends on how integrated we make guilds and how that impacts the player. So there will probably have to be some trade-offs discussed between those two options to decide which one makes more sense. And I just off the cuff, without really having discussed it really or thought about it too deeply, it does seem like that the trade-off would be more integrated direct impacts versus fewer to allow you to be more connected to more guilds is probably what the trade-off is close to being.
Thank you. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a fun one for you, maybe. Have you given any thought to a temporary attack for all heroes that don't have an active codex in the meantime?
Yeah, we have kind of thought about that a little bit. We never really kind of decided to pull the trigger in that direction, but it's an interesting idea. It really is just kind of a matter of do we want to, and I know I say this a lot, just do we want to dedicate time to making something that makes sense, or should we stay focused on what we're focused on? Just because even doing that, it may sound simple and it may not take as much time as integrating a whole new class, but there still would be time spent doing it, and that would be time not spent doing the next class or working on PvP and stuff too. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit neutral on that idea. I see its merits in allowing people to use more heroes potentially, but also making sure that it remains balanced is still a decent chunk of work. So it's I'm not sure. We can maybe talk about it again in our next game committee meeting and see if there's how people feel about that. But I don't know if anyone else here has any opinions on that. Beetle, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said is aligns with my thinking as well. I think the biggest thing would just be the balancing, because I know there are some classes that I know we've talked about here and there where they're still semi-viable without abilities, or people are able to kind of figure out some interesting dynamic setups there. So we would need to take all that into consideration, and it could be harder to balance for some of the higher advanced classes. So yeah, I think it's worth discussion. But like you said, I think it is another thing that would require priority in the balance testing.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's see. Thoughts on the opinion to reduce equipment drop chances upon retries in hunts. So essentially, the more retries it takes you, the lower your chances for drops.
That just sounds really punishing and mean to me. I don't know that I can see the value in doing that. I guess if we wanted people to spend their stamina more and get less, I guess would be what happens if we did that. Who would like that? Would anyone in the chat like that?
I see the guy with the whip back there. He looks like he likes it.
Does not seem to be the case, sir.
All right. Well, anyway, that's I guess it doesn't. I don't see us doing that anyway. It just seems a bit too punishing, and I don't really like it. Maybe if there could be more explanation into why that would be good, I could maybe rethink it. But I don't. Just by itself. Sorry, whoever asked this question, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, from my perspective at least, if retries didn't have an additional cost, probably be more in favor of it, but they do. So I feel like it, you kind of accommodate for it on that end already, at least to me. Let's see. Any thoughts from the group about adding? And actually, I just realized what time it was. We're gonna take this last question, then we'll call it a day. Any thoughts around adding achievements and tiers for hunts, similar to how Duels has?
Guess that's a me question again.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do like achievements in general in games. So I could see that being potentially a cool thing to do. It's just, I know broken record thing. I think there's more coming with hunts that we haven't gotten in place yet that I'd like to get out first before doing anything like that. And I with as far as seasons go, I mean, it's not really the same kind of system as Duels. So like having kind of seasonal rewards of that kind. I mean, we do like include holiday drops and things like that as kind of a thing that we've been doing with hunts. But yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the idea. I just also think that there's other things that we should be focused on first.
Awesome. Thank you, good sir. I'm also going to nominate you myself to bullish us today. But before we do that, any final thoughts from anybody? I will just say, as always, thank you to everybody who is here listening. Thank you to everybody who watches this video later. Thank you, as always, to everybody up here who takes the time out to be here and answer all of these questions. You can always submit questions to us on talk.defikingdoms.com or in the AMA questions channel in Discord. That's it for me. Any other final thoughts from anybody?
Don't forget that we're making good progress on the next. I'm sorry, it's just the next class now.
Yeah, that I completely forgot about that. Sorry. That
you're good. I guess just as a post AMA announcement ish, that we're working hard on the next class. It's making good progress, and that we've got it in balance testing and making tweaks and improving things as much as we can. And so, yep, just keep an eye out for that.
We also have really a little POV teaser for you guys, similar to how we did the Seer. So this is the POV of the next class, which has been upgraded to the next class. Dun dun dun. What does it mean?
I thought you were going to start doing the Jaws music. Dun, dun.
Dreamer, you'd started to say something. Sorry. Also, thank you, Beetle Dude, for reminding me of that.
No worries. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. No, I wanted to share a little bit of a view of like the difference between all the core game features and Duels. I think when we look back, what Fox has been working on with Duels has been really helpful because we have a mini game that has a smaller scope, but as we've seen, such a simple game, we've been able to update and improve and incorporate a lot of volume, some strategy, and really doing our best to learn on how seasons could work, how rank could work, how matchmaking could work. That's going to be informing all of our decisions for our upcoming features as well. That's not saying everything that is in Duels will be somehow in the core game, but we're learning a lot as we go. And Fox mentioned the flowers growing with sun and rain thing. The rain is welcome. We want the comments. We want people to share their views. I may not always agree with it, but if you like something, please continue to share that too. Sometimes it's just like, it's been a long road, over 2.5 years. Sometimes Fox or Hubert or Beetle or Second Best Dad or anybody on the team, even those like in the background, Winston and others, that are and folks on the marketing side, when we see positivity, when we see appreciation, it helps a lot. And it helps us know, oh, they do really like this thing. This is important thematically to keep in our game design and our overall like game loop and experience. When we look at the game we have, and we have all these questions today where it's like, all right, these are great things, but like, we can't necessarily consider this to prioritize versus something else. Those are very different questions from Duels. So the type of questions we get at different stages of the game are different. It's pretty cool for Duels to be entering a mature game state where we're trying to have minimal updates going forward, but still design it in a way where people are incentivized to partake in each season. Whereas on like the core game, whether it's hunts or PvP or whatever we want to talk about, an iteration of combat or supporting features like durability, there's still so much that we're designing and then testing and then balancing. So thank you for being patient with those two things. It's incredible that this relatively small team is able to juggle all of these different features, from marketplaces to mature mini games to still in its infancy, like core game features that get more fun and awesome, with each release. Just wanted to really kind of give kudos to the builders here and for the very long, sincere responses that we've given. I hope people appreciate that. And if you did, or even if you felt like it didn't fully answer your question, but you appreciate the effort, hop in chat or send some DMs or something. It goes a long way to keep people going and know what people like and what they don't, and how we can continue to, do the best we can. But just wanted to, I was silent all meeting because, it's pretty awesome that a lot of our questions around, our mature game features and our in development stuff, and people are excited and thinking of good questions. So I just wanted to give a little shout out, kudos, and I guess a request to keep the I won't even call them negative or criticism, but keep the rain and the sunshine coming. And back to you, Bolon, for I think you said Hubert's bullishing us, but back to you.
Awesome. All right. Any other final comments? If not, Hubert, go for it.
I see an unmuted KP. Were you going to say something?
I just wanted to say that, Bolon, the Alpha Police loves sharing the Alpha, guys. If you haven't heard Sticks Intern song, I highly recommend you checking it out on YouTube. And with that said, Hubert, over to you.
Thanks. I still need to listen to that song, actually, so I'll have to check it out. So I will just say, it's good to be back from my leave with for having my new baby, and it's like just seeing how we were able to, everything's still moving right along. We're making good progress, and I'm really excited for all the different things that we have going on. The next class is coming soon, and I'm excited to see that out in the wild, and just how quickly we're able to kind of turn around things with that is just really, really cool. And then, we're of course focusing as well on PvP and getting everything we need ready for that. I think there's so many cool things we have just right around the corner here that just make me so bullish.
Bullish.
See you all next week.
DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command your legion